Palma de Mallorca, 14 October 1955. John Hertz keeps pestering me about going back to work. I know I am contradiction inside contradiction. I know that truth is sometimes an octagon, and that I am one. I can love women and hate them, and this may seem a contradiction. Contradiction is a cardinal element of life, and of itself it may be no contradiction. You can love every instant of living and still want to be dead. I know this feeling often. Don't tell me that contradiction is wrong. Some people say, that is a contradiction, as if something defies logic or understanding and is therefore not true. I might be quite famous, but not feel famous, only feel sometimes like a heel. I can be worth 1,000,000 or 2,000,000 and feel like a bum and be a bum and live like a bum. Tell me of paradox. Is there not some percentage of women tell me of paradox. Is there not some percentage of woman in each man and some man in each woman? And if so, is this not contradiction, and is it not true? My awareness of my own paradox does only one thing to me. It makes me laugh. When I see and sense myself doing something inconsistent, opposite to what I think I believe, I realize it, and I laugh. What else can you do when you're all rolled up in the same package of personality? Here is duality and singularity at the same time. I know that it is possible to say something at one time and believe it and know it is true, and to say its opposite at another time, and it can, in other circumstances, be just as true. I know that there are two men inside of me. One wants to ramble and has rambled around the globe more than once, in the sky and below water. The other man is a settled fellow who thinks sometimes he is or should be a husbandman, and that he should sit settled in a house by the side of the road or by the side of the sea. Both are inside of me. Each is true. No, contradiction has a place in human nature, in social values, just as it has in mathematics. Contradiction is neither true nor false. It is. If they say I am inconsistent, let them say it, for it is true, because inconsistency is a part of living nature. I am the epitome of the 20th century cosmopolitanism, but I should have been born an explorer in the time of Magellan. I am sour on women, but cannot do without them, and I need them incessantly so as to feed my sourness. I could have killed Bruce Cabot, but I can forgive him. I am bitter about what Lily Demita did to me, but I also laugh about it. I crave the indulgence of my senses, but this is countered by an interior desire that is even keener than my senses to know the meaning of these things. I want to be taken seriously. I feel that I'm inwardly serious, thoughtful, even tormented, but in practice, I yield to the fatuous, the nonsensical. I allow myself to be understood abroad as a colorful fragment in a drab world. I have a zest for living, yet twice an urge to die. I have a genius for living, but I turn many things into crap. I'm dangerous to be with because, since I live dangerously, others are subject to the danger that I expose myself to. They, more likely than I, will get hurt. I will do a great deal for a buck. Then, when I get it, I will throw it away, or let it be taken from me. I'm very tough, but also I'm a patsy. The pursuit of gold, pleasure, and danger motivate most of my springs. I am alternately very kind, very cruel. I love art, but finance may be my forte. I want faith, and I am faithless. I look for causes, and they wind up with me a romp. I love and hate myself. I want to be loved, but I may myself be incapable of really loving. I hate the legend of myself as phallic representation, yet I work at it to keep it alive. I despise mediocrity above all things. I fear it. Yet I know some of my performances have been mediocre. I generally deny that I was ever a good actor, but I know I have turned in a half dozen good performances. I call myself a bum, but I've been working hard most of the days of my adult life. I portray myself as wicked, hoping I will not be regarded as wicked, but I may really be wicked in the biblical sense. Women do not let me stay single. I do not let myself stay married. Cheers for Mama. Damn her too. Give me the artistic life, except when I'm producing, directing, organizing, banking, playing the stock market, and in other ways being a businessman. I hate the law and spend too much time with lawyers. I've been called the eternal sophomore, the perennial youth. I can do nothing to alter this. I'm hung with it. The stamp is upon me. It's too late for me to become a scientist, saint, or messiah. If I symbolize anything, it is that I am the eternal sempervine. I laugh a lot, and I weep secretly more often than most men. I have quested all my life for truths, and I wallow in bromides. The bromides themselves wallow in truth. I live polygamously, but I am fascinated by people who appear to live happy monogamously. I am on the side of the underdog, except when I am on the side of the rich. In me, contradiction itself, as a principle, finds its own raison d'être. I am convinced of the validity of contradiction. There are many worlds. Each is true, at its time, in its own fashion. For 3 years or so, I aged in the ports and capitals of southern Europe, though chiefly living on the Zaca at Palma de Mallorca. I made several trips to Jamaica to see how my holdings were doing. My mother and father continued to spend time at the island intermittently. My big operation was to try to hang on to my property. Values went up. The land I had bought there in the late 1940s had trebled and quadrupled in value. But I had a hard time hanging on to the real estate. While the coconut trees grew, I borrowed and clung precariously to what was left. I steered clear of the United States. Let them clamor for money. I had none. Lily took over my beloved Mulholland house, my last possession of consequence. My son Sean, now about 15 or 16, was on his summer vacation in 1955, visiting Pat, Arnella, and me aboard my yacht. We invited a couple of friends to a farewell party. We were on our way to the Cape Verde Islands, where few people go nowadays. It was off the beaten track. I intended heading directly south to Gibraltar, and perhaps put in at some of the little Spanish towns along the coast which I hadn't seen since the Spanish Civil War. The party aboard ship was exceptionally pleasant and amusing. It broke up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, with all of us in the best frame of mind. Usually, my wife and I had separate cabins, but this night we didn't. We were in bed together. The silence of the night was suddenly broken by raucous voices on the deck. Who could it be? Were my friends returning? I heard footsteps in the corridor leading to our room. The door was flung open. There was I, in bed, not a stitch of clothes on. Neither had Pat, and completely strange people saying, "Where's your party, Errol? Where's the party?" 2 men and 2 women. The men were Spanish. One woman was French, and the other was American. They said in various languages, "We thought we would just drop in on you for a few jolts." I'd always been indignant about people who figured my yacht to be a public museum and open to all. In fact, one reason for living aboard ship is because you can have some privacy. The party's over. Who are you? Hasn't it occurred to you that you mustn't set foot on a foreign boat without asking for permission? I said this lightly, hoping to dispose of them genially. The American woman said, "Oh, come on, you old stick in the mud. At least you can do is offer us a drink." I kept myself under control. Besides, madam, bursting into my private quarters is even worse. They laughed uproariously. I felt like a damned fool, in bed with my wife, both of us nude. A sheet, only partially covering us. "Party pooper," yelled the girl. Pat spoke up, addressing the American woman. "Get off this ship, you bitch! How dare you disturb us like this? There's a baby in the next room, too." The Yankee lady retaliated. "Who the hell are you?" That did it. I grabbed a towel and wrapped it around my middle. I'm sorry. I'll have to ask you to leave." I started to get out of bed. This woman said, "Who's leaving? We came for a drink." "Lady, you do nothing of the kind. You know how you got down here? That's the way out." I hustled them up the companionway, still trying to keep the towel around myself. On deck, the Spanish fellows cussed steadily. Abusive cracks floated forward and aft in 3 different languages. It was like a United Nations meeting. I rushed them to the end of the ship, towards the shore. One of the Spaniards, who had an even better vocabulary of Spanish abuse than I had ever heard, riled me a bit. I took him by the arm to hurry him along. He made the error of pushing me in the chest. I now stood in the nude, and in the starry light of early morning displayed Flynn in all his valor, but no armor. I hauled off for a long punch. I aimed for his chin, but I hit him in the teeth. At the same instant, I felt a horrible blow behind my head. His pal had hit me behind the ear. I took after him, chasing him around the wheelhouse. Ordinarily, since the accident to my back, I had trouble lifting up even a chair, but I got a hold of him, lifted him above my shoulders, and tossed him into the Atlantic. I didn't know he couldn't swim. The girls were flying after me. Pat was flying after them. I took the other fellow and tossed him over the side. Mike Curtis couldn't have staged a better deck fight. It's amazing what you can do when you're provoked. There is a point where my gallantry runs right out. I took after the dames and was going to serve them the same, but having heard their 2 friends leave, they got ashore. There they stood on the shore, hurling abuse, more French and American. The American 4-letter words, by the way, are usually 5 letters in French. I could feel the back of my head swelling up where I'd been conked. The visitors now went off, up the street, 3 of them, carrying one near-drowned guest. After the tumult settled and the shouting died down, Sean poked his head out of the ship's companionway with a big revolver. "You didn't have a thing to worry about, Pop. I had them covered all the time." That broke me up. Anything funny can turn my black anger from hot to cool in a hurry. He probably would have shot me in the back. At daylight, I was on deck. I looked at my right hand. There was a nasty gash, and the remnants of teeth were in it. One of my seamen found 2 teeth on the deck. There was blood, which was neither Pat's nor mine. I stuck my hand in some salt water, put Band-Aids on it, and decided to forget about it. We upped anchor and began a glorious sail. Next day or so, the hand began to swell. It was obvious that blood poisoning set in. Stupidly, I paid no attention to it. I had been cut in all sorts of places all my days, and I'd never had any serious infection. My hand and forearm were taking on the dimensions of a small suckling pig, very red and angry looking. We made our first port 2 days later, a southern island off the coast of Spain, near Ibiza. I headed for a doctor, and he gave me penicillin. Although the arm throbbed with pain, the sea was glorious. The ocean breeze was fine. My vodka supply was high, and I enjoyed the seascape. But you shouldn't drink when taking antibiotics for a chaser. I was in poor shape when I got to a hospital in Gibraltar. By then, I couldn't move my arm. Violent pains shot up my shoulder. I headed for Tangier so as to get into a French clinic as fast as possible. They took blood tests. The French doctor explained to me that the most poisonous things in the world, after rattlesnake bite, were human teeth. Samples of the poison in my blood were sent to the Pasteur Institute in Paris. They couldn't identify the type of germ that was in the blood. I became delirious and was in a coma that lasted for 4 days. The doctor said if there were no improvement within 24 hours, my arm would have to come off the shoulder. "Perhaps," he said cheerfully, "I can save it a bit of the stump." A fever raged. I was tossing in bed, but I wasn't going to have that arm off. He said, "It's your decision. We won't answer for your life if you won't follow the best advice you can get. You have a choice, to lose your arm or to have a nice flower pot have a nice flower pot 6 feet by 2. This was the third time I was supposed to die. The other 2 were in Italy, when I had hepatitis, and New Guinea, when I had blackwater fever. Just when I reached a crisis, the Arab riots were getting underway. Arabs and Frenchmen had been massacred. Houses had been burned. You could hear the excitement outside the hospital. There was a private lawn outside my room. The Arab gardener chewed hashish as he cut down the weeds. Every now and then, he would be kind enough to give me a touch. My arm was still massively swollen, but I was holding my own. I was there a month. Each night I heard the chant of 10,000 Arabs vowing hatred of the French, screaming in Arabic for the death of all Frenchmen. The doctor now said he would only cut off the arm at the elbow. "Wait," I told him. The riots got worse. There was all kinds of violence. Houses were broken into. Reports of what was going on came in from the gardener, orderlies, Pat, the doctors. I gained a little more ground. I would now have only to cut it off at the wrist, I was told. "Not yet," I said. A riotous night occurred that was the worst yet. Thousands of people milled about the clinic. Nobody gave a damn that Flynn was there. I knew what would settle their hash and save the day for France. If Lily were there, with plenty of portable materials about, she would have settled these Arabs in 10 minutes. The doctor came in with a gun, and he said, "We've issued revolvers to everyone here. We've barricaded the doors. Here's a gun for you." "Good God, take it away. I hate using them, even in my westerns. If those fellows burst in here, I don't want to have any gun around. I would be the first one to get knocked off. I would advise you to sleep with it under your pillow. There are better things to sleep with than that. And that reminds me, where's that nurse with my shot? The 36-23-36, with the dark brown eyes." When I recovered, we headed back to Palma de Mallorca. We never did get to the Cape Verde Islands. I continued under treatment for a long time. Altogether, that Spanish tooth had cost me 6 months of time, apart from such considerations as money. It was around this time that I was visited by the Hollywood agent who suggested I quit beachcombing and go back to films. A wire came from Paris about a moving picture. Friends saw me off on a trip to Paris, which they hoped might reopen for me my moving picture career. The plane had taken off, and I settled down to a mild drink of brandy and a book. A hostess said, "Mr. Flynn, would you care to go up and see the cockpit?" Rather reluctantly, I had seen so many cockpits, I rose and went up front, wearing a big broad smile, which immediately froze. The pilot had no teeth in front. The rest of his face looked startlingly familiar. It was the guy I smashed in the teeth on board my boat 6 months earlier. A glint of recognition and remembrance came into his eyes. "Que malo noche," he said. "What a bad night." The first thing I could think of was, son of a bitch, he's got me. Then, no, we're both in the same plane.